We're here.
Live at 5:05. Live at 5:05, but we're live.
But we're here.
Yes, Friday at 5. So excited to get started and on to our live that we're always doing, which is a lot of fun. I'm Dean Nixon with TurningLeaf Wellness Center, and Kate
Semmens with TurningLeaf Wellness Center.
With TurningLeaf Wellness Center, coming live from St. George, Utah, which I'm glad you pointed that out the other day. Sunny St. George.
Yeah. If you've not ever been here, come hang out with us. It's a really great place.
It's a beautiful place. It's like living on vacation.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm excited to get started tonight and talk. We decided tonight we'd talk about the key, the book, The Key.
Ta-da! So really, I think what I would love to talk about with you guys as far as the key is concerned, since we have the author here, co-author, right?
Yes.
You wrote this with Lee Kelley.
Yep.
Is just, I thought it would be cool to just kind of spitball where the idea for the book came from, what your inspirations were, kind of just that whole process of while you were writing the book. And then we're going to talk about some of my favorite pieces that I've got questions for Dean to talk about.
Perfect. I love it. So the book itself is about the 8 coping skills. And where the idea came from, it actually came from a dream that I had.
Oh.
Yes. And what had happened was every New Year's, when I go to bed on New Year's Eve, I always, before New Year's, I always set my intentions for the upcoming year. And so I had set my intentions to write another book. So, of course, the first book that was written, that we wrote, Dr. Moody and I wrote together, was the Value-Based Parenting book.
Okay.
The second book that we wrote was The 4 Steps to Confidence, which we talked about as well.
Mm-hmm. So
I knew it was time for another book. And so I set my intentions, and I went to bed, and I had a dream. It was one of the craziest, coolest dreams ever.
This story's also already super crazy cool for me. I love it.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm hooked.
It was cool. And so I had this dream, and in the dream, I saw myself, I was kind of outside of a building, a big cinder block building, and there was a cart, and on the cart was on rails, kind of like a mining car type of rails. And so I can't remember all of the dream. I just remember that I was with somebody. And so we went and we sat on the cart, and the cart started moving towards the wall. And right as we got to the wall, I reached out and used the key and opened the door open, and we went into another place, totally different. We got out of the cart, interacted, got back on the cart, and we went through a different looking wall. And every time we just kept going through this door, all the way to the point where the dream ended. And so when I woke up, I just felt very inspired that this needed to be something to begin the journey of writing. And so what I intended was to take each of the 8 coping skills. Now, the overview of the book is about the key. It's about a young man who is in recovery from an addiction that he'd been battling as a human being, and he gets out of treatment, and he remembers a key that his grandfather had given him, and an actual key, but it's not a conventional key. It was a unique key, and I describe it very well in the book. And he then goes to his grandfather. His grandfather then teaches him the first coping skill of focus. And then once he's mastered that, then his grandfather sends him to meet the next person, the next character in the book. But prior to, he takes the key and he opens a door, and inside that door is something significant that you'll have to read about.
So all those pieces came from the dream.
All these pieces,
the door to get that next.
The key, opening the door,
that's cool.
Learning that next piece, that next process, that next thing. And so that's where the book itself came from, was a dream that I had based upon an intention I had set.
So then that's the basis of the book. Let's talk about the characters in the book, shall we?
Absolutely.
Because they're all, what I loved every time that I've read it, and I've read it a couple of times now, just working in our life coaching stuff, as well as like doing my social media stuff,
Yeah.
is what I tell people about reading it is the book it's a nice, easy read. It's not like Tolstoy or something, you know what I mean? It doesn't bog you down, but like the concepts are so layered in your life. You know what I mean? It's one of those books that you could read it now and then read it in 2 years and you'll get something completely different out of it because of where you're at in life, right?
Yeah.
So that's what I found in each one of these characters too, is they're so alive. You know what I mean? Like they're really relatable and you can like picture them in your mind really well. So I guess my question is, are they just fiction? Do they come from somewhere?
They all come from somewhere.
They do.
They do. That was the fun part about writing it. And Lee Kelley, who was writing it with me, Lee Kelley is one of those guys that I could take the story, I could write the bones of it and really get a lot of it out. I had a lot of support from other individuals. Leah Crispin also was I could dictate to, and then we would send it to Lee, and then Lee would take it, he would tweak it, and he and I just were able to brainstorm through a lot of it. But the characters themselves are people from actually my life, and some of the experiences of the main character are actually stories from my own personal life. And so like one of the first characters, his grandfather's name is Mac. And that actually is my nickname given to me in my years of construction. I was on the job sites, I was always the guy that if the tool broke down or something broke down or vehicle broke down, they would always send me to go fix it. So they gave me the nickname MacGyver because of the character. And so then they shortened it to Mac. And so in the construction world, I was known as Mac for a long period of time. So that's that character. But then there are other characters we've had that are people from my life that are really cool. I've written about one of my the climbing section, Chad, was written about one of my dear friends, Chad Farr. He was my climbing buddy, my climbing partner, still is. He's a great man. He's gone on. He's now an emergency room doctor. But I call him Chad. I describe him in the book. It's him. So
not to protect the innocent.
Protect the innocent. Charlie. I write about Charlie and Tammy that live. They're up in Wyoming when he goes to Wyoming, and this is Isaac when Isaac goes to Wyoming. Tammy and Charlie Childers, who are very good friends of mine. And he's just a cowboy. Charlie's he's just a cowboy, and Tammy's a barrel racer. And so I wrote about, so it was, I kind of took these little, and I let them all know, by the way, they all know.
This isn't like, surprise,
like, by the way, you're in a book. But I wanted to build, I wanted to take the personalities of the people and build the principle and the personalities together. And there were certain pieces where, as I described each of the characters, I was pulling from different people and different aspects of my life, and so all the way through. And the last two chapters, Lee had more of an influence on. I really loved Lee's writing and the way he writes, and so the last two chapters especially, I wanted him to have a little bit more rein on, and he did such an amazing job. It was just like, here's the bones, here's the character, here's the principle, here's the point I want to make, and then go from there. And he was really able to take some of those pieces, but it was just a fun experience.
That's so awesome.
Yeah.
So let's talk about some of my favorite pieces and maybe get a question or two also. By the way, anybody watching, if you've read the book or if you have any questions on it, just feel free to type on it and we can see you guys. So we can totally field questions through on your end of things as well. But one of my favorite characters and moments, which is interesting because it's something that I'm really working on in my life right now, is when Isaac goes and meets the surfer. I can't remember his name right now.
Yeah. Gage.
Yes.
Yep. And that was the section. That's when he goes to right here.
Right here. Yeah. That's what I thought it was.
In Faith and Hope.
Yep. In Faith and Hope. And he, which is one of the coping skills is faith and hope. And so he goes to the
No, forgive me. It's meditation.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, forgive me. It's meditation.
It's back here. And prayer.
And meditation and prayer.
Right.
And this is where he goes. He leaves Charlie and Tammy, and he goes to Gage.
Right. And part of his journey is learning how to be still, right? Like how to sit and meditate and be still and be guided that way. And we've talked, I think, quite a little bit lately about Zen and all those kinds of things, but that's a piece in my life right now that I'm like, oh, I'm really trying to work on that because I'm just all the time a little bit high strung. So really working on learning how to be still and centering myself and doing the meditation and prayer piece. So talk to me about this chapter. Talk to me about like your, really also, I think my question overall is how did you guys come up with the coping skills? Like and define the 8,
right?
And then let's specifically talk about this chapter.
I'm going to come back to this piece. So,
right here, right there.
Yeah,
okay.
so
I'll hold it open.
So go ahead with your question.
Well, let's maybe just go over really quickly how it was that you came up with the 8 coping skills, and then we can dive into this particular skill. The way
the 8 coping skills actually came up was years ago. It's probably about 5, 6 years ago. There was an individual at one of the high schools that my children were attending that had taken their life, a young person that had taken their life, and it really had impacted the youth around me. And so I realized, and I was talking to other people that are in my industry, or in our industry, I should say, our industry, my industry.
It belongs to Dean.
But
you can keep it.
It's for real, keep it. But no, I was talking to some other professionals, and we really it was like this conversation started about, that we've got to create coping skills. And so then I started recognizing that there are coping skills out there that people just aren't connecting to. And so I just sat down and really just started meditating and pondering on it. And eventually I just started writing it out, and they just started, one by one coming, okay, this coping skill helps with these things, and this coping skill helps with these things. And so eventually, when I got done with it, I had 7 of them. And then I was out in Arizona working with a teen treatment center out there with their youth, doing some seminars out there. And then that's when the 8th one came to me. And because I was watching, and the 8th coping skill is resolution, and I'm watching all these young people. It was a young women's, all women, young girls, and I'm watching them as they're going through their processes, but they know how to like talk, but they didn't know how to resolve. They didn't know how to bring it to closure. And so that's when it dawned on me. It's like, we've got to create closure here. We've got to get to a point where we're resolving things, and that is a coping skill, is to learn how to bring things to a resolution or to addressing it. And so that's where the 8 coping skills essentially came from.
I love it. So once again, now I just want to dive into meditation and prayer, because I love how in the book Isaac goes to the coast, right? Yes. He goes to the ocean. And he meets, is it Gage?
Gage.
Okay, perfect. Oh, there it is. He meets Gage, right?
Yep.
Who owns like a surf shop.
Yep.
Like hanging out there.
Yeah.
Pretty much, if you ask me, living the dream life, right?
Yeah.
All about that beach life.
Yeah.
And so when I was reading the chapter, and as I've read it, it's like, okay, I can get into meditation and prayer at the beach.
Yeah.
Like it's easy to do there, but then applying the skill in my whirlwind of an existence is something different,
right? Right.
So maybe let's talk about that.
Yeah. Well, the fun part about the character on this one is actually one of the only characters that isn't from my life personally, but it's actually from Lars the Surfer, the very famous Lars the surfer. I can't remember his last name for the moment, for the life of me right now. But he's this amazing surfer. So in the book, I describe it. It's based around him and that character. But again, this was one of the sections I really wanted to let Lee take the lead on writing the bones or the meat of it. The bones of it is based upon that principle of meditation and prayer and how important meditation and prayer is. And what I wanted to point out is that meditation, in this section, I wanted to point out that meditation, we meditate all the time. We're always meditating. People don't realize that we're meditating. The problem is the type of meditation we're doing is unhealthy. So we meditate, like you'll be driving down the road and you start daydreaming about the past or future tripping on the future. You're meditating.
Okay.
Right? Because your body is responding. Your body can't tell the difference between what you're imagining or daydreaming about and what's really happening. So it's the same thing. It's meditation. So what the concept is that we've got to be able to start to meditate in a healthy way. And I wanted to point out that meditation in this section, that doesn't always have to be the formal sit down in the lotus position, which it is. We can do that, and that is an important part of meditation, but it's not required. Like, we don't have to always do that in order to meditate. And that's what I really wanted to draw out in this section, is that you can do other types of meditation, but it requires us to find different ways of doing it, if that makes sense. And so
now, when you say that, do you mean like just individually, like what works for you, or?
Yes. And we have to find what works best for us. Is, some people can sit down and they can do that meditation. Others are using other techniques like yoga, or they're using other techniques of rhythmic humming or chanting, or even vacuuming. You're just doing that repetitive movement over and over, and that can be meditative. There's a lot of people that talk about jogging, or they'll get into running, and they get into that meditative state, or swimming, and they get into the cadence and focus on the breathing. And so there's a lot of.
I love that you're doing that, and we're both getting into this cadence,
great cadence and rhythm, and you're just. So there's a lot of different types of meditation that we can do, and meditation. Oh, we got back to blinking lights. Meditation doesn't have to be a long process either. It can be a momentary thing. It can be simple. It can be sitting down and meditating for 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there. It doesn't have to be this long, drawn out process.
Isn't that interesting though, that's what we think, at least me, like when I think, okay, I'm going to start a meditation practice. I want to use this as a coping skill, right? Like I'm going to work on honing this coping skill. That's what you think about. You think about finding a nice Zen spot, either in your home or out in nature, and you're there for like an hour, you know what I mean? But I really like that you said it doesn't have to look the same, like it can be that 5 or 10 minutes. It can be vacuuming, it can be jogging, like whatever works for you. It's funny how we put those blinders around it though, right? Like we put these weird parameters that isn't real.
Absolutely. And we build in this construct of how it should look, rather than finding, what works for us. It's like trying on shoes. You've got to find the ones that work for you. But here's one of the pieces I wanted to draw out. And I've been talking to, and I told Lee, the principal, this is really what I want to draw out. And man, he did such a great job on this chapter. But what I wanted to talk about in this chapter is how we don't necessarily learn to go with the flow of life. We tend to fight the flow of life. And so I was talking to him and drawing it to an experience I had in surfing. And so when you're out in the ocean and you're surfing, a lot of times, and we can do it even if we're just playing in the ocean. A lot of times the waves coming at us, and as the waves coming at us, we try to jump over the wave, or on our board, we try to go over the wave, and the wave just takes us and turns us and tumbles us. And we just can't seem to get past the wave. But if you watch what surfers do, is surfers will swim right out to the wave, and as the wave comes, they embrace the wave. They turn their board either over and go through the wave, or they dip their nose down and go through the wave. But they embrace the wave. They go through it, and then come out on the other side. And with emotion, we need to do the same thing. With trials, we need to do the same thing. But we don't do that. We're always trying to go over it or around it or away from it, and it always catches us and just rolls us. Yeah. Rather than learning to quietly dip ourselves into it, let it wash over us, and move through it. And so as he described it, he talks about the on page 85, he says the waves, the crashing of the waves, we can hear, it's chaos. As you paddle out, you get past the break. If you try to push over the wave, it will top you. Even if this cove were sitting in a once made of rock part of landmass, over time, this is a different section. Oh, I goofed. I'm reading from really a different section, though. But it is. This is talking about how the waves themselves will change the landscape to fit it, the water itself. So I actually reading, but there is the section in there, the board, I think it's over here, where he talks about it. And I don't want to belate where I've been looking at the time and trying to. Oh, wow. It's crazy. It goes quick. I know. But there's pieces that are written in it, and Lee did such an amazing job. And I wish I would have read that better before I did it. But I was looking over your shoulder going, I think that's it, but it wasn't. So here's the funny thing is, like, when I read the key, I was like, Dean, is there an audio book? We should record you doing the audio thing. So I'm still poking at that, Bear. Trying to maybe get that to happen. I get a lot of feedback on it. If we can figure out how to make it happen, I'll make it happen. Done. Turn it into an audio file. Yeah. So really quickly though, because you mentioned that you, like, with the coping skill, like we were specifically talking meditation and prayer, you need to find out how that works for you, right? Do you think that's another key to all the coping skills? Yes, absolutely. And one of the best ways to do it is to really sit down and focus on what are the emotions I struggle with the most. Then as you work through the book and read it, and the beautiful part is in story form, so it's very engaging. And as you read through it, then you go back and you start looking at your emotions you wrestle with and start seeing how those coping skills can help you. I love it. It's perfect. So, by the way, you can get the key on Amazon. You can come in here to TurningLeaf Wellness Center. We've got lots of copies available for you to purchase. We do go over the coping skills on a rotational basis in our Monday night family support group. Yep, we do. And Monday at 6:30 to 7 or 6 to 7:30. Yes, and so come join us, learn the coping skills, have a really safe place to kind of hash out how to best do that, like we were just talking about, what's going to work best for you, how to apply it the best way, as well as, you know, all the other ways that we can get coping skills that we have to offer you here at the TurningLeaf Wellness Center with life coaching and seminar, and that's what we do around here. That's what we do. That's our jam. A little personal development. Yeah. And we've got the mental health side of it as well. We've got you know, Dr. Moody, who's an amazing psychologist, and so we've got all of those aspects as well. Yeah. So now we have a couple pieces and then a request. Yes. So we've got the level 1 coming up. For those of you that are looking into level 1 seminar, it's called Awakening. It's that opportunity to understand how the world has impacted us, be able to disconnect from that external stuff, and be able to really find growth and grounding within ourselves and feeling comfortable within our own skin. That's in the 18th through the 20th of October. As I look at my cheat board over here, we have a parent workshop that we just had a giveaway for, and Yay. Super excited for. I'm trying to remember who won it. Casey Kirby. Oh, and she's listening. Yep, she's right there. Hi, there Case. She is. How are you, Casey? And so we've got that parenting workshop on the 29th. Coming up, as well as we've got coaching sessions and all sorts of specials that you can see on our page. So again, thank you. Like and share our posts, and let's get people out there. Spread and the love. The other thing was, we have been toying around with the idea of doing maybe something different for the Fridays, or maybe switching Friday lives to a different day. So we're wondering what day of the week you guys would like to do live with us. Like, maybe Thursdays work better for everybody. Maybe Wednesday's a cool day. Like, we would love to know what you would like, because you're part of this. It's not just me and Dean just shoving stuff at you. Like, you're a big part of what we're trying to do.
So I love you see all the loves
hearts
happening
come
up?
up.
Yeah,
Yeah, lots of
come
love.
be with us. So just like put in a comment like, hey, I love Wednesdays, or, Fridays really work for me. It's super cool. Whatever. We would really like to get a little bit of feedback on this from you guys. So that would be really awesome if you would do that for us. Please
Awesome.
and thank you.
And thank you very much. We will see you all on Monday for Monday Night Live.
Monday Night Live.
Monday Night Live.
Have a wonderful weekend.
Have a good weekend. Good night. Oops.